Hello, everyone. Oh my goodness, we have had some technical difficulties this morning trying to get our GoToWebinar up and running and working. Seeing as we've got about, I don't know how many of the aXcelerate family online at the moment, but a huge welcome to everyone who has jumped on. I'm Katie Mackay. You may know me from the Kat and Katie show, from other client forums that we've run in the past, but we have an all-star lineup today, so we'll jump into it pretty quickly, seeing as we're running a couple of minutes late, so that we can start taking you through all the content that we have to show you today. So very quickly, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to start our slideshow, and I'm going to take you through a little bit of housekeeping, just because GoToWebinar, as we said this morning, we've had some technical difficulties, so we just want to make sure that everyone else is able to see the screen clearly and knows where to ask questions as well. So first of all, a little bit of housekeeping, as I've said. This session will be recorded today. We'll actually be sending you out, whether you're attending or not, the recording of the session. There's a couple of other webinars that we actually talk about today and a couple of other videos. So we're going to send through all of those resources after the session so that you've got them. We are going to be answering questions throughout. Now, it won't personally be the presenters today, but it will be a lot of the aXcelerate team sitting in the Q&A sort of section, or the question and answer section. So we'll either be broadcasting answers to everyone, or if it's quite a specific question, we'll be replying directly to you. So you will find questions over in the right-hand panel, the Zoom panel. So right now, if you do have the Zoom, sorry, I keep mentioning Zoom, GoToWebinar control panel popping out on your screen and kind of taking up a little bit of the real estate, you do have the little orange arrow. So at any point you can collapse that part, that control panel. So it should turn into quite a slim little menu down the right-hand side. So that's just a really key thing as well. You do also have the opportunity to resize the screen that we're sharing compared to the video as well. There's a little slider which you can kind of drag up and down to enable that to happen. But otherwise, let's jump into it. So in terms of our agenda today, anyone who has attended some of our face-to-face client forums over the years, where you may have met me, things are definitely, they've changed over the last couple of years. Not to say that we haven't been running forums, but they have definitely moved online just because of many things, but probably the pandemic is one of the major things. But we also want to change it up a little bit. I have kind of done the lion's share of the talking over the last couple of years, and I think it's really valuable for you to meet and greet other really key aXcelerate team members who have important roles in the business and want to be able to kind of take you through what they're doing as well. So the very first person I am going to introduce shortly is David O'Rourke. He's our CEO as of just over a year now, and he's going to be taking you through just a bit of a behind the scenes business update, what's been happening to the aXcelerate family and with the aXcelerate family. So we'll hear from David shortly. We also have the lovely Sam and Julian. They are two of our key product team members, and they are going to be taking you through the sneak peek as to what is happening under the hood. Normally all of that happens towards the end, so we're spoiling you a little bit and kind of showing you all of the cool things that are coming kind of earlier on today. I will then be taking over and taking you through what is actually new within the system that you can start using right now. Some of these features you might be already familiar with through our marketing, that sort of thing, but I think that there's some really cool things in there, particularly some items that have been highly requested by our clients over the years. So I'd love to talk you through those. And then I'll be passing to Tom. Tom is one of our key customer success managers, works with our clients, works with different accounts every day, and he's going to be taking you through some really neat tips and tricks as well, just to make sure that you're fully getting everything out of aXcelerate that you possibly can. And I guess that's the whole basis of today's session. We really want you utilizing everything that you have in your systems as well as possible, and also realizing that there might be some other things that you could be utilizing just to streamline some processes. So without further ado, I'm going to pass to David. We are doing a little bit of a musical chairs today, so you'll see us sort of jump up. It may not be the cleanest of transitions, but we thought this would be easier in terms of timing. So I'm going to let Dave take over now.
Hello, seamless as always. So as Katie said, hello, my name is Dave O'Rourke. I get called David when I'm in trouble, so hopefully you won't hear David too much. I thought I'd give you a bit of a brief background on who I am. put a bit of a face to the name. I've been lucky enough to meet quite a few of you over the last 12 months. But I've also been very much working in the background, letting our stars shine in the business because they've certainly got more product knowledge than I do. So I joined aXcelerate, as Katie mentioned, a little over 12 months ago. Bit about me, my background is software and sales. For my sins, I was once upon a time an engineer, which means I'm highly opinionated on technology, but I slowly but surely moved towards the commercial side, or the dark side as engineering would call it, and today focus almost entirely on sales, commercial, and how we can develop the leadership within our business. I've been fortunate enough to work all around the world. I'm a Brisbane boy, so for those confused, tomorrow night Queensland will be winning the State of Origin. But I have worked in Europe, spent about 9 or 10 years there, worked in the US, also spent a bit of time or a lot of travel through Asia professionally. But Australia is my home, and Australia is definitely where my passion lies. So in terms of what I do in businesses, my niche is technology scale-ups, which means businesses just like aXcelerate. So you can imagine how fortuitous I feel to be handed the keys to this amazing business that is in truly the best shape of any business I've ever been lucky enough to lead. So the one caveat, one of the reasons you don't see me in some of these, at least in the early days, I don't come from the vocational education space or the RTO world, so I have a lot to learn, which is one of the reasons I love joining these sessions as well, because I learn probably as much as you do. But the underlying tone for me, very, very proud to be a part of this business, love everything we stand for, and in particular feel very blessed with the values that we represent here at this business. And I hope you feel them through the honesty, the empathy, the acceptance, respect, and trust that we hope resonates highly in everything we do. For me, I measure that very simply, and that's through our client retention. And that is a stat that I'm most proud of, which is a beautiful segue to what a year. So aXcelerate over the last 2 years, somewhat coincidental with COVID, has actually doubled the number of clients that we had as a business. So today we're very fortunate to have well over 1,000 clients that call us their student management system or their LMS or both, supporting over 1.5 million students annually. And I think that's a great privilege. It's why we do what we do. It's hopefully making a great difference to a huge part of Australia. I mean, that's around about 10% of the adult population of Australia that every single year trust us through you to learn more about what they want to do with their lives. So that's a great privilege, and it's a great honor, and it's one we take seriously. In order to service that immense scale that has come towards our business, we're acutely aware of growing pains, and we are very focused on trying to not forget the clients that have been loyal to us for such a long time, whilst also capturing the opportunity that sits in front of us for all the wonderful new clients that are joining our platform. And that's a tight balance, and that can be difficult to get right sometimes. To that end, we've added about 50% to our workforce in the last year. We've also added a second office. We're not particularly imaginative. The second office is literally 3 doors down from the current office. Over the last year, we released, as I'm sure Sam and Julian in due course will take you through, around about 400 service updates. And I cannot begin to stress how significant that is for a business of our scale. And it's really important, I touched on it a second ago, to recognize that collectively, us and you have struggled through year 2 of a pandemic, which has a massive impact on our workforce and our teams and how we support you. But also up in Queensland, and I'm sure in New South Wales as well, we've dealt with a massive flood. So the office that we're talking to you right now, for the last 3 months, only half of that has been operational as we repaired downstairs. And I got to know what it's like to cut up carpet and reinstall furniture all over the place. So we've had our fair share of challenges in this year. Yet despite all of that, have achieved the massive growth that I mentioned before, and managed to achieve customer satisfaction levels at above 97%, which for us was a very, very significant target and a really important one, and we think puts us at the lead of the pack. But also, as I mentioned before, the number one thing that as a CEO that I measure all of our performance through is not the clients we win, but it's the clients we retain. And in the last year, we've retained 98.2% of the clients that we could possibly retain. Yes, a few more unfortunately went through hard times and the business is closed, but for those clients where we had an ability to retain them, 98.2% have chosen to stay with aXcelerate as their provider, which is amazing. So at the start of this presentation, please hear from me, thank you. Thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for all the support you place in our teams and the trust you place in our product. Hopefully, we're living up to those expectations. So the next part of my presentation, and I will be brief because I know you want to hear more about the product than me rambling on, but I figured it might be good to give you an idea of where we're putting our effort and a little bit of the why. So our last 12 months and our next 12 months is all about maturing our business, taking us from a wonderful startup, taking us through that journey as a scale up, and making us a business that you can trust and depend on long into the future. That starts with our management team. And over the last year, we've actually reinvented our entire management team here at aXcelerate, combining people that have lots of industry experience and knowledge of this business with outside perspective of people who've worked in the SaaS industry or in lots of other places for many, many years to hopefully give you the blend in leadership and perspectives and diversity that you need and that we need to deliver the great product that we have. And as I said before, the great service and values that we're so proud of. Now, beyond that, there's a lot of standards and numbers on this slide, but effectively what they are is all statements of maturity. ISO 27001, ISO 9001, TPES, what they translate to is growing up. For many of our larger clients, they're not an option. We have to have those standards and functionality in order to show them that we are truly doing the right things from a security and a quality framework perspective. But for all of you, you benefit from those standards because it changes how we work within the business. It makes it more repeatable, it makes it more dependable, and it makes it more traceable. That's demonstrated through our security and our performance and our service availability. So we set ourselves a tough target of 99.9% service availability. I'm very proud to say we hit it. That's not to say we're not without our wrinkles or our flaws. Every technology business has them. And in the last year, you will have experienced some of those growing pains as we effectively take this 747 that's mid-flight and change its engines as we're going. So you have seen some changes that we made, and the guys will talk more to them today. One of those changes was what we call clustering internally, which is moving clients from shared databases into their own smaller clusters of accounts, such that we can be more performant in your reporting and give you meet the expectations that you have of us in a service. And that required us to do things like the global login experience, which again, we have learnings from. We're not sitting here saying we're perfect, but we got out the other side and we now have a more secure and controlled mechanism of gaining access to the platform for all of our users, which is what you need, even if we didn't represent that as well as we could have at the time. We've also invested very heavily, and we will continue to invest very heavily in the support and onboarding resources. And what I'm referring to there is not people, it's the processes and the tools. So something you'll hear about is our onboarding series, which is giving you more options rather than just one-to-one person training. It's videos, it's help resources, and we will go a lot further with this. So as a business, we create an LMS. It only makes sense that in time we train you on our platform from the LMS. And that is our goal, and that's where we'll be heading to over the next year. And finally, the obvious side effect of maturity, which small businesses love and hate in equal measure, is we'll double down on process. We need to be better at doing things more consistently so that we can deliver the service, performance, and heart values that are so important to this business in its past and will remain so in its future. In terms of what we do in engineering, another very topical one, and again, I know we'll talk about it more today, but it is really difficult in a business of our age to find the right balance between custom work, which is often funded by a client or required to win a certain deal, with what we call renovation and innovation. Renovation being fixing up features, doing rework on stuff that we built years ago that was wonderful at the time, but right now might be getting a bit tired. And then innovation. Where do we put our effort? Where do we put our energy into the new stuff that hopefully, like Turbo did a few years ago, is what causes the surge in interest in our product and what creates the better experiences for your customers and hence our customers. To do that, we've doubled our engineering team. And we've done that in a very, very difficult year to attract talent. And frankly, we aim to do it all again this year. So we will continue to invest in more and more engineers within the company so that we can be the truly one and only end-to-end built in-house in this little old company in Brisbane native system for the entire student management journey. And that's about refactoring our platform so that it, as I mentioned before, so that we can scale it well into the future whilst also adding the new bells and whistles that we want. It's also about splitting projects and operations, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but in order for us to have certainty with respect to our roadmap and when new things will come, we need to know that those resources are different to the ones that are working on the operations of the product day to day and fixing any issues that arise or any service performance things. Our priority, as you're going to hear from the product guys, is definitely the learner experience. So we understand that your customers are the ones that pay our bills. So if we can make their learning experience as good as humanly possible, then everyone's going to be happy. So our effort goes into the LMS and to our apps in the primary. And we always look for the right integrations because we know we can't build it all and we know we don't have to. But equally, we know that choosing the right ones is better than choosing anyone. So our mantra here is fairly simple. We don't try to be first and we don't try and do it all. What we try and do is be the best at the things that we put forward in our product, and we try and tailor them such that they're actually built for the use cases that you need and to give your students a better experience. So my last slide before you get to the more interesting stuff, as I said, is what are we going to do this year? And frankly, it's all about communication. And this session is one of those items. But our goal is to provide better and more thorough communication through our customer service, because we believe that actually, even without a lot of new things added to the product, we already have the service that will meet most of your needs. The challenge is actually making sure that we keep you up to date and educated in all the benefits that exist in the product right now so that you're getting the most out of your subscription to our business. You're going to hear about lots of new features that are already in development, and believe me, we have a list longer than my arm of all the things that we would like to do. So it's more about what order do we do them in, and as I said before, how do we launch them so that they're successful, things like our work-based learning. It's a wonderful addition, but it's not wonderful if we don't get it into your hands and explain to you the benefits it can create for you as a business and for your students and their outcomes. And to do that, as I said before, you're going to hear a lot more of these sessions. There'll be more micro forums as opposed to the really big ones like this one. There's certainly going to be more proactivity. So there's new roles in our customer service team that are designed to get to you before you get to us, to talk about your service, to talk about things we've seen in your service and areas where we think you might be able to get more out of what we do. And to make that more effective, we're going to do it through our people. So as a leader, my job is to help bring up every other person in this business so that we can all give the service levels that you would expect. And hopefully we can surprise you with some wonderful stuff along the way. But I guess overall, our goal here is to slowly but surely continue the trend in investing and migrating as many clients as we can towards our Turbo subscription. That's truly where we think you get the most benefit out of everything that we do. We will push further and further and add more into that, and we'll probably have more features that are outside of Turbo as time goes on as well. But know that the end goal here is to demonstrate to you value such that you're not thinking about what we cost, you're thinking about the benefits that we bring to your business and how that can give you a more efficient business and a more successful business and attract more students to your own businesses. So without further ado, I'll now hand over to Julian and Sam, who are the guys who lead up all of our product innovation here, to take you through what we're working on in the future. Thanks very much.
Hello, everyone. So yeah, Sam and I have been at the company for a long time, and you might recognize us from some of our user research sessions we've done with clients along the way. Myself, I started off in online enrollments and support, so you might recognize me from those things. But yeah, these days we're very focused on the design and productization of the product. And essentially what that is meaning is just kind of helping to, at least from my perspective, organizing what we work on and making sure that we deliver a great end-to-end solution for whatever we're developing to make sure it's kind of launched correctly and all those types of things.
Yeah, so today we're going to take you through some general themes of, what areas we're prioritizing development in, as well as some specific sneak peeks of new stuff we've currently got in development, or is, coming soon, that sort of thing.
Sure. So really the first area that we obviously want to talk about is our ideas forum. And that's really the best way for you to communicate all of your suggestions and feedback about the product directly to us. So it is a place where we're constantly reviewing all the requests there. There is, as you can see, a ton of requests on there. So don't be dismayed if we're not responding to each one, but we are kind of checking them off. And obviously looking at the ones that really get a lot of attention are really giving us a lot of focus to work on. And something that we can talk to on that point is, out of the top 6 requests that are on the ideas form today, we've actually done 3 of them in the last financial year. So that being implementing additional class trainers, being able to CC alternate email addresses set against a contact, and being able to launch as learner. So they're all important changes that some have been around for a long time. So there's really been kind of a renewed focus in implementing all of this feedback and making sure that we're really making changes that are benefiting the widest number of clients and users within the system. And we'll continue to keep striving to do that. Something that we really want to do more as well is be a bit more responsive, because a lot of the time we are looking there and we are taking on the feedback and implementing whatever we can. But we do want to make sure that we are, responding and making sure that we're, actually letting everybody know that we're implementing these features as well. And part of that you might have seen recently as well is if we've started to pin some of the recently completed requests to the top of the form, so you can kind of see what we're working on and what we've kind of implemented recently as well. So just continue on talking about areas of focus for us. We really want to continue to keep improving the core areas of the system. And to us, what that means is really trying to make changes that benefit the most number of users. So we obviously get a lot of feedback from internally from all the clients, and being able to think about all the new and exciting features and opportunities that are out there. But we do need to continue to strive to keep improving and keep updating all of our core aspects of the system. So just a few of those that are kind of really on our radar at the moment is some improvements to the templates area. We get a lot of feedback about that area, and we've got some cool stuff to show a bit later. We do want to also keep at front of mind the trainer experience and not let them kind of be neglected, just because we obviously speak with so many of the admins and have a really key focus on the learner. We just want to make sure that they're also considered, and their experience is also an important one to us as well. Something else that is we're trying to improve as well is really workshops in general, but specifically the locations aspect of workshops, to make that a bit more easily managed. And then again, some more general things as well is we also want to be looking at the general navigation of the system and the efficiency of actions. And what I mean by that is to make sure that if you're doing something that takes some time to be able to complete, we want to make sure that we're making it as easy as we can to do those really frequent actions that everybody is trying to do. And hopefully you should see some of that in a lot of the improvements that we've been making recent, and we'll continue to make as well. As Dave touched on as well, the login experience is really front of mind for us as well, and we do take all of the feedback that we get about it very seriously, and we'll continue to make that the best it can be. And then the last one to really mention as well is whenever we are making improvements to the system, we're always making sure that our API is up to date as well, and that just ensures that the system is as interoperable as it can be, just to make sure that if there's external systems and things like that, we know that we want to be able to open the platform up as much as we can in a safe and easy to do manner. The last one I'll kind of touch on before I hand over to Sam to talk a bit about some other areas is performance. And so this is something that Dave kind of touched on before as well, but it is always, it's something that's kind of always happening behind the scenes. Often won't see stuff in the release notes, but it's always really a major priority of ours to ensure that the speed of the system and the uptime is always maximized, so that it stays, it works, and everything that we continue to offer is always available for you. So a big part of that has been the account migration to what we're now referring to as clusters of accounts. And basically what that has let us done is reduce the noisy neighbor effect, meaning that if there's other people within the system that are really hitting the system hard with a lot of requests, rather than that being just impacting everybody at once, then the fact that we've kind of got all of the accounts migrated into clusters just means that the effect of that is reduced significantly. And what that really means is, an immediate kind of benefit is that warehouse reports should be running much faster than they were before this. And really it just kind of increases our capacity for scaling the system in an ongoing capacity. And so as Dave kind of alluded to, there's been some hiccups along the way, but doing this process now will mitigate so many issues in the long term that it's a really important milestone for us to have achieved. A few other things that we've kind of added behind the curtains as well is dynamic performance scaling. So that means kind of splitting the system up in the way that each smaller area within the system can scale up and down to help be as fast as it can, rather than that just being the whole platform together. Again, that's just part of kind of our commitment to scaling and system performance. Something else we're working on at the moment as well is some significant improvements to the assessment engine. So the way that all that data kind of works and is retrieved and sent. So you'll be seeing some significant improvements to that as well a little bit down the line. And then something else that we take very seriously is obviously just all the enhancements to security, which really is just kind of summarized in those accreditations that Dave talked to earlier. But it just means that the way that we're doing things is to a very high degree and high standard, that you can trust us that we're doing the right things in all of the background, so you can focus on what's important.
Yeah, so one of our key areas of focus is also going to be on work-based learning and also the learner app in general, which I'll talk to a bit more later. But for those of you who aren't familiar with work-based learning yet, it's essentially a series of features to support on-the-job training. So there's a learner app, which mainly comprises of a digital logbook / training record book, as well as an app for supervisors to approve those logbook entries. There's also an area for you guys within aXcelerate where it's all set up, administrated, and managed. So recently we've released the ability to associate evidence against specific activities, which are then mapped back to units of competency. So what that allows us to do is basically let learners start building a digital portfolio of evidence that relates back to specific units of competency. So when they complete that on-the-job training component, they'll walk away with a pretty awesome portfolio of everything that they've done and achieved, to help them get a job, but to also form the basis of any assessment they might need to go through. Another element we've added to that, which you can see in the screen on the far right, is conditions. So this is another way to give even more context about what happened with the activity. So that could be something like the supervision level, but it could even be what equipment they use for that particular task. And that particular block is completely customizable by you guys. So some of the planned improvements that we're going to be implementing based on the feedback we've gotten so far, the ability for learners and supervisors to sign off within their logbook entries in the actual learner app. This allows you to still have supervisors involved in the process, but not necessarily making them have their own app. Exporting unit evidence. So we're going to give you many ways to sort of get all of the information and evidence out of the logbook that the learner has collated. So whatever views you're after, if you want all the evidence for activities relating to a particular unit, that's the type of thing you'll be able to export out of the system. So Third-party reports are another one that's come up heavily. So we're going to be adding a way within the supervisor app for the supervisor to create a report similar to how a learner can create a logbook entry, basically specifying what the learner did, any relevant details or evidence, and then signing off on that to send through to you guys in the admin and trainer area to review and probably export and add as official evidence to an actual summative assessment. So activity goals are going to be, I guess, more granular milestones. So right now, against an overall placement or traineeship or apprenticeship, we basically measure the number of hours that have been recorded or days, but that's at an overall level by us adding all of the logbook entries together. So what activity goals are going to be is essentially, more granular goals that you could set up for particular activities. So if you had an activity which was mix and apply grout, you could set a goal that would need to be 10 hours the learner would need to record in order to, have achieved that goal. And the overall sort of intention with that particular feature is then weaving that into learning plans. So really just, making the LMS as cohesive as it can be. And that could look something like, a learning plan element being a work-based learning goal or an on-the-job goal. Which obviously allows you to create logic and settings around that particular goal. So a learner might need to achieve those 10 hours on the job before they actually unlock, the corresponding assessment for that particular unit. And then there's obviously the LMS, which, most of you associate heavily with Turbo and one of the main benefits of Turbo. So a few of the areas of focus here, the new learner app, which I just touched on. Right now, its main use case is for work-based learning, but we do really want it to be, a really awesome companion app for learners to access their course material as they go through their course. So one of the things we're going to be adding very shortly or releasing very shortly are learning plans within the app. So the learners will be able to keep track of that same learning plan. So what's in there right now is the ability for them to see all of their course details, announcements, their schedule, when their workshops are. They can edit their contact profile and that sort of thing. But our long-term goal is to just increase the parity there between the actual learner portal that you access through the web and the learner app that you can download onto your phone. So even for those who aren't as interested in work-based learning, the learner app will still be quite relevant for your learners. And then there's just really improving the learner experience for learning plans and the portal in general. So things like allowing learners to actually search, the modules within their learning plan, find content more easily, but also access content more quickly from the learning plan. So anywhere where it might take a little bit to actually get started with a piece of e-learning or a lesson or a quiz, we want to just reduce the time there and make the learning plan just feel, an amazing place where you, as a learner, you can just get to whatever you need to in a very short amount of time and just get straight into it. So we also want to add more layout options and presets when authoring your content. So anywhere you can author content, such as within lessons or learning plans, we want to give you more preset ways to make that content look awesome. So that could be things like putting your content into tabs or accordions, but also having more control over the styles that you put in. So, being able to style all of your headers in a certain way, keep your content on brand, but just make things more consistent and more scalable for, your team members who are authoring that content. Also further improvements to lessons and assessments, such as new question types or actually settings for particular question types we have at the moment. So we're really excited about, what everyone's been doing so far with the new multi-short answer question and the kinds of forms and different contexts that have been created there. So, for those kinds of questions, we want to add more settings to how the learner should respond, but as well as, what elements you can include there just to increase the number of contexts we can facilitate. Another one we've recently recently released, which is simply a setting of an existing question type, is the fill in the blank drop-down select. So instead of your blank being something where you have free text to type, you can actually select from a drop-down instead. So we've utilized the exact same question type, but the way they learn and the difficulty of the question is quite different. So yeah, that's what we're focusing on within the LMS. And we'll have some more specific examples in this section of the presentation.
Yeah, that on the drop-down select question type, I think Katie's going to be touching on that a bit further. And that one is actually also another one that kind of came from the ideas forum as well. So it's just to go to show that a lot of what we are working on, we're always trying to implement that feedback and make these ongoing improvements. So really those areas of focus are really just to show this is kind of what we're doing ongoing, but it's also kind of what we're already doing, and kind of show some of that stuff in what Katie will talk about a bit later. Yeah, so with this section, we're actually just going to be talking about all of the new stuff that's really in flight, that's kind of on the near horizon, which is some pretty exciting stuff here. And messaging is really big one that we're pretty excited about.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, I've just talked about the LMS, but the most significant thing that we're working on within the LMS is our new messaging system. So essentially what this will be is a way for learners within their learner portal to contact you guys, to create requests, to get the help they need from anywhere within the portal. So whether it's while they're doing an assessment, while they're filling out their profile details, anything like that, they'll be able to ask a question and you'll be able to easily see that come through, assign it out to the right person and resolve it. So it does have I guess the way we've framed it is help requests, but it can also be used for more generic messaging. So you can also open these on the learner's behalf. So essentially messaging them yourself to, get any key messages through to them. But really the key here is these will come in and you'll be able to assign them out to the best person, whether that's the trainer, the assessor, set a priority, categorize them, that sort of thing. And eventually resolve them. We've also added a way here to sort of set expectations. We understand that we're sort of framing this to learners as a bit of a live chat, or at least that's the way we've styled it. But we do know that a lot of this will be asynchronous in terms of how you respond to learners and that sort of thing. So what, in terms of these screenshots, this one in the forefront is the learner widget that'll appear in their learner portal, and the one behind it is the admin experience for replying to that with a bit more details and context about who the learner is and that sort of thing. So longer term, we're going to be utilizing the fact that this is within the aXcelerate LMS to sort of give you smart context about the specific requests that come in. So when a learner opens a request with the category assessment, it's going to let them choose exactly which assessment they're talking about, and even potentially, which particular question they're having issues with. And so what that will translate to for you guys responding to it is the ability to easily preview that assessment and that question exactly where the learner is up to. So less of a need to jump into their portal to see exactly what they are trying to see, or jump to a different part of aXcelerate to scramble to find that assessment preview or something like that. So that's really how we're going to leverage the aXcelerate system to just give you better support than you'd be able to with any other support platform, is by giving you that context to your aXcelerate objects like courses, lessons, e-learning, assessments, that sort of thing. So this will be planned for a beta release in Q3 to Turbo clients. And essentially what a beta release is for us is, working well, you can use it within your own team or with your actual students, but it'll be a reduced feature set. Will it be a feature set that we feel will be, more than enough to use this feature really well, but there may be some key features missing, which we'll get your feedback on throughout that beta process, so that when we actually do release the feature properly, it'll be fully featured and with your feedback, be exactly what you need to do. So that's really what we use that beta process for, is to get your feedback and implement it as quickly as possible. whether that be, changes to how we present it or just new functionality, that sort of thing. So that's really messaging. And I'm sure we'll have many questions about that. And we'll probably do another webinar closer to the actual release. So another thing we're working on behind the scenes is a new way to deliver learning and assessment content that we're calling role-based learning. So what this will entail is essentially setting up your own competency and skills frameworks and assigning them out to roles. And users within aXcelerate contacts, your learners, your staff, they can have their own role, which will allow them to browse relevant content based on that particular role. So you could set up a role for your trainers and give them access to, professional development content that they need for their TAE, or you could create your own custom competency framework for a student support officer and design and define exactly what skills they need to do or need to have to perform in that role. So each role will have customizable rules, such as how much learning content you need to do and in what particular areas. So it is a little bit more, I guess, free form than learning plans, but it will still have guidance in terms of what the learner should focus on and what they need to achieve in terms of things like quantity of learning and that sort of thing. So the initial supports, when we do open this up to you guys, will be for CPD context, continuous professional development, but we will be making it sort of more generic as time goes on. So for that one, we're aiming for a 2023 beta release.
So one that I wanted to talk to you about and kind of touched on a bit earlier was some changes to our template builder. So this is a core system improvement that will be available for everyone. So anyone who's familiar with templates will know that when you're adding dynamic content, you need to go to those sections at the bottom of the page and paste them into the content, the content editor. And then if you want to add in multi-row template fields, kind of needs you to really jump in and have some understanding of the source tab, which can frighten some people really. So really what this is aimed at is kind of making that a better process. So again, templates has been a pretty commonly requested area for improvement. So we've taken a lot of that feedback on board. And so from what you can see here, it'll basically be a panel on the right-hand side that you'll be able to collapse easily, so it's not too intrusive. And if you want to continue to use the old method, you're more than welcome to. It'll be down the bottom of the page. But using this new method, we'll just first of all let you search for fields. Just have it be a bit more accessible, being on the right-hand side of the page rather than scrolling to the bottom each time. And it'll just be a better process for adding manual fields and creating multi-row template fields. And the idea for that is you'll be able to kind of select the fields you want to include in those tables. So just for some context, the multi-row fields are when you have a table that will have a number of results that display. And yeah, again, setting that up is quite complex. So it's really aimed at making that much more user-friendly. So this will be a really cool one that we're pretty excited to get out there as well. And again, this one's also planned for release in Q3. So it's just showing we've got really a lot, kind of underway happening behind the scenes. And this is one of those kind of core system improvements that we were talking about earlier that, we want to, maintain and keep up to date and continue to make sure that the experience across the system is best in class, not just the new features and the functionality that we're putting out. So we've also got some contract reconciliation improvements going on the side as well. So I believe about a year ago, we released the payment import system for contract reconciliation, supporting user choice, SVTS, and C3G. And so the changes that we've got that we're working on at the moment are to support the Smart and Skilled and CSQ formats. So again, that's happening behind the scenes and is a fair way along as well. So the general kind of process is that you'll receive a spreadsheet of payments for all of the funding that you've received as a business, and you'll be able to import into the system, match it to the different enrollment records to compare what was received versus the data you've got in the system, and inevitably kind of create those financial records within the system so that you can kind of keep all of the finance data within aXcelerate up to date based on your funding information. So as I said, that this tool is already there within the system, but the changes that we're making are just to support those new formats. And again, we're aiming for a release this next quarter. So again, we've got kind of a lot in the pipeline coming. The next to talk about is we've got an integration with Google Calendar also in the works. So the aim behind this one is to link your events and workshops to your Google Calendar. So basically, you'll just kind of sign in, link up your Google account with your user account. You'll be able to select shared calendars that you might be able to see in that screenshot, hopefully. And basically the aim is just to kind of keep the data within aXcelerate synced to Google as well. So that you can kind of, the aim is to create all of your data within aXcelerate, all the workshops and things, perhaps add it to a shared training calendar, and then be able to see that within Google along with data that might be outside of aXcelerate as well. And so again, this is aimed for a Q3 release. I think we've got actually a few clients testing this out at the moment as well. So you can come talk to us if you want to get involved and start testing it early, but this one will be coming fairly soon as well. And then really the last one to talk to is a Stripe integration that's being worked on. So it's just a new payment gateway that'll be available for all accounts. And really the aim is just making sure that we have flexibility for the available payment options. So this will just complement the eWay and EasyPay integration that we have at the moment to just, again, give you more options for the gateways that you can select. The initial iteration of this will just be for single payments, meaning that, EasyPay will still be the single one that has payment plan support, but that is the aim for us to eventually support that down the line and, basically just take on all of the functionality and payment options that Stripe has to offer and give them onto you. And that's planned for a bit later in the year, to release a bit later. So this is essentially all that, all of the big major stuff that we're working on at the moment. That again is a bit further along in development. There is more kind of happening behind the scenes, and all of the smaller stuff that we do along the way, the core system improvements, all the areas of focus that we alluded to before. They're just the types of things that you'll just see within the release notes. So they're not ones to really kind of talk to while in flight. So that's really always the place to go to see the latest and greatest stuff upcoming. Just check our release notes. We do a release every 2 weeks, so that's where you'll be able to see all of the new functionality and when it comes into the system, and any of these things, the significant stuff, you'll see there, and we'll pin them as featured, so you'll be aware of all the latest and greatest stuff that that we're making and changing to the system. I think that's everything. So now we're going to pass it back to Katie to kind of talk about what those new things are that are available within the system already, and I'll let her talk to a bit more.
Another smooth transition. Thank you so much, Julian and Sam. It's always very exciting to see what we're working on, and there's a couple of things there that I'm particularly excited about, one of them being learner messaging. I just feel like that is going to be such a game changer in terms of clients being able to see proper oversight of all the communication happening, not only between a student and the admin team, but a student and the student's trainer as well. A lot of that can sometimes get lost with back and forth emails and not being able to see that proper chain of events. So in terms of compliance as well, and having all of that evidence of support and so on and so forth, that's going to be really, really exciting. So very keen to see that come to life. Otherwise, I'm going to get a little bit more hands-on in this next section. This is really taking you through, and I will be getting out of the slides and kind of jumping in and out of aXcelerate. So I'm hoping that it'll be as smooth as possible for everyone, but just to take you through some of the really new things that we have released that should be available to you right now if you want to be utilizing them. As I said, some of these areas you might be already using, so I'll just be trying to highlight some of the new things that we've released that you can can now start using. And some of these include starting with what's new videos and just taking you through. Julian just talked about release notes, and that is one of the key ways to find out what we're working on. We have a fortnightly release cycle, so we're constantly releasing new code, new enhancements, changes to the system. And not only have we got release notes, we now have the what's new videos. So we'll talk about that shortly. We've also been doing basically enhancing our online assessments feature a little bit. So there's a couple of new question types in there that are really cool. So I'll talk through those. We also have a new approval process, not only for changes to the assessment aspects within aXcelerate, but also for learning plans, where we might have a particular content author who's actually going in and building out content. But as soon as we hit publish, we want someone else to be able to go and approve that before it's fully published and live. Learning plans you may be familiar with, you may already be using, which is very, very exciting, but just giving you a really high-level overview of that feature in case you're utilising online assessments right now but not learning plans, or you may not be utilising our learning management system at all. So really wanted to just hone in on the benefits of utilising learning plans. There's a couple of little ones to finish up with. So things like better usage of SCORM. So if you are utilising SCORM content, SCORM learning, just a nice way to have that launch for your learners. So I'll talk to that. Launching as a learner. So this is all about how we can impersonate a learner. And I know that has been very highly requested. That was one of our ideas forum ideas. Attendance signatures. So whether you're a fee-for-service RTO, whether you have government funding across different states, particularly Victoria, there is that need to be able to get signatures off students each day that they're in the classroom, but also have your trainers endorse that with a signature as well. For a lot of our clients, this has been something that they've had to manage using paper, which we don't love. We would love to have you using aXcelerate for everything. And so really this new change with attendance signatures enables learners to be able to sign in via their learner portal, but also grab that or capture that trainer endorsement at the workshop level as well, or at the attendance level. So I'll show you through that. We also have multiple trainers accessing classes. This is not a ginormous feature, but I know will mean a lot to some clients who have been requesting it, for a number of years now. This is another ideas forum idea that's kind of been brought to life. So I'll quickly take you through what that looks like and where you can find it as well. We have the invoice due date offset. Now, this is another one, again, through my client forums, I've definitely had clients ask about this before. So this is really to do with corporate clients or even an organisation that you're working with, and being able to define a very specific payment term for them, or a due date sort of term for them. Right now, we've got a very blanket term, so it's either everyone has to pay within 7 days or the default is 30 days. So this is giving you a little bit more flexibility when you're working very heavily B2B as well. And then finally, again, jumping into our learner portal, I'm going to be jumping in and out of our learner portal today and our admin portal, but a new academic transcript that your learners can actually go through, view, and even print as well. So I'll take you through all of that too. Okay, I feel like I may have talked too much in my last slide, but anyway, we'll jump into it. So the very first thing that I just wanted to hone in on is everything that's going on within aXcelerate. So we have these forums, which is awesome, but how do you keep up to date in between? Because that is one of the most key things. If you can be kind of keeping up to date with all the things that we have going on with our new releases, and then you're putting those features into play, that is really how you're going to get the most benefit out of aXcelerate. So I am going to escape out of our slides. It's going to be, as I said, a little less formal and kind of more hands-on. But I just wanted to take you through and just explain ways that you can keep up to date on what's going on within the system. So the very first one, I've got a little screenshot of it here, but is our What's New videos. So you may have started to see these lovely What's New videos. Julian's voiceover sounds very lovely on the on the videos. But what we're trying to do is actually give you a wrap up. And I know that Michael Keenan is on the call today from Real Coach. He actually pointed this feedback out, I don't know how many years ago now, probably 6 years ago at one of our Sydney client forums, and I think there was agreement from the rest of the room, that it would be great for us to be able to produce a video that just took like a highlights reel of all the key things that we've been working on, so that it was really easy to watch it, obviously, but also then send that on to other key users of your system as well, so that they're really keeping up to date. So that's what we've finally moved towards, and we've got our videographer in-house that's churning those out with Julian, the product team, and our marketing team. So I'm hoping that that will really make it a little bit easier to visually watch what we're changing each month. We also, though, have the very detailed release notes. So you might already be very religious at reading through the release notes, but if you've never seen or heard about the release notes, I just wanted to really quickly show you where you can find those. So this is our support area, or our support center that you might be familiar with at the moment. If you simply search on release notes, it'll pull up the most recent release notes. I've got open at the moment our 2022 release notes, and if we scroll down, this is literally going to show us everything we have changed. I think one of the newer changes is that we've also got some really nice little graphics in there as well to just hone in on what has actually changed. And we also have our nice What's New videos embedded in those release notes as well. So that's something else that's quite crucial, and something that I would really be encouraging you all to read up on, each fortnight. Okay, moving on to some more nitty-gritty. I'm going to jump into the online assessments area, and I'm going to show you through a couple of new question types. Some has been from, or one of these has been, well, both have come from feedback actually. So I'll take you through and just show you what we're trying to solve with these new question types. So if you're utilizing our online assessments feature, this is all underneath our assessments menu, and I've jumped into assessment mapping. So I have a quiz that I'm going to be utilizing just to demonstrate these new question types. Okay, let me just jump into my login screen again. Sorry. Let's do that again. All right, so I've opened up this first aid quiz, which you may have seen before. I use it in many of my examples. And I just wanted to demonstrate a couple of our new assessment question types. So the very first one is that, and you may not be aware of this, but many of you are probably using short answer question types. Of recent times, probably in the last sort of 6 to 8 months, we have added the ability to create a multi-short answer. This is ideal if you have any sort of qualifications that require forms to be completed, could be in the childcare space, could just be another way that you want students being able to fill in a table. This is a really great way to do that or facilitate that. We have not only the ability to set both short text areas, but also long text areas where you can actually go and pop in things like the maximum characters that a student can pop in. You can also, though, of recent times, also add tick boxes. So anything that would work better with a little tick box, particularly something like this form that I've recreated in here, that's something that your learners can go through and fill out. So this is definitely one of those sort of questions that a trainer would have to assess, but I'll just show you in the preview what this looks like. No thanks, Grammarly. All right, so let's jump into here. So this is actually what it would look like to one of our learners. And as I said, what we're trying to just prevent is the need to have to get your learners to download a PDF form, fill it out offline, and then have to upload that, even though that's still a perfect way to do it. It's just much better because we're getting them to entering that data. So in terms of that user experience for them, it's a little bit better. We also have one other question type that I'm going to quickly show you, and that is actually off the back of some feedback that we had surrounding our fill in the gaps. So you might be familiar with this question type where we actually want a learner to go and pop the correct word into a gap, which can be ideal in certain scenarios, but if students were to get that answer incorrect in terms of spelling or whatever the case might be, it can be a little bit challenging. So what we have, we still have this option because it is quite a good option for certain circumstances, but we have now added the ability to also create a fill in the gap sort of as a drop down. So you're giving learners the ability to select from, multiple correct answers. So that is something else which if you're not using right now, you can start implementing. Something else just while I'm in the assessment area as well, which you may not be aware of, but you may have seen, is our versioning. So I won't go into crazy detail about this area, but it's just the ability as you are going in and you're creating changes and you might be wanting to effectively make fundamental changes to the assessment or to the question or to the content, we can now create a new version. And the really nice thing is that this is actually going to keep track. We can see Tom created this yesterday, keep track of all of the different changes and even the ability when we are creating a new version to comment on what has changed between the two versions. So again, being able to keep track and audit what's gone on with each assessment, I'm hoping that that will be really handy as well. Finally, we also have, and I won't go into great details with this one, but we do have an approval step now when it comes to authoring assessments, as well as our learning plans, which I'm going to get into shortly as well. We have the ability for a particular user who has permission, obviously, to go in and author assessments to go through and do that, but when they do go to finalize or to preview, it does flick to someone for approval. So basically, if I look at my dashboard, we actually have a brand new widget which you can add right down the very, very bottom. Sorry, I'm getting used to Tom's computer, which is content pending approval. And so any sort of content, whether that is an assessment or a learning plan, we actually have the ability to then view that if we have the right permission to then approve that. So that's something else if you're keen to learn a little bit more, we've got in our help documentation as well. Great. So I'm going to move on to the next one. I'm going to fly through these. I'm conscious of time. So learning plans, you may have heard us talking about learning plans. Sam just talked about learning plans and Julian as well in their previous presentation. So what are learning plans? As I said, you may already be utilising these. You might be using online assessments, but not learning plans. So for anyone who doesn't know, learning plans is really a way to set up a guided curriculum or a step-by-step way for your learners to consume learning and assessment. I like to think of them as a bit of a wrapper. Once you've got all your elements like your assessments and your e-learning, could be SCORM, could be lessons, could be some resources that are living in the resources library, a way to wrap them all together, order them and lay them out in the order in which you want a learner actually consuming them. With that, there is a really nice way for learners to actually see visibly how they're progressing. And that's one of the most important things for a learner as they're going through, to actually noticeably see that progression happening. So I'll take you through a live example and show you that a little bit closer. We also have some really great and quite flexible prerequisite rules as well. So if we have learners who might be consuming completely correspondence learning or completely online courses, maybe with a couple of practical days here and there, a really nice way to have them work through at their own pace, but actually unlock as they successfully, achieve assessments and learning as well. We also have a really nice way, and I'll take you through in the live version of this, some nice content as well. So not only laying out our lessons or our learning and assessment, but also having maybe an embedded video or a nice embedded slide, which I think Tom might even cover off in Tom's session. And also the benefits of having the really close linkage that we have to our units of competency. So I might jump into a live example and just take you through this really quickly. So I'm going to jump into my learner portal. Let's go in here. And if your learner portal doesn't look like mine in terms of having some logos and some backgrounds and some coloring, Tom has actually just recently delivered a webinar on how you brand up and customize your learner portal. So if you haven't watched that, definitely recommend. But I'm going to jump into my Cert 4 in commercial cookery. The guys are all looking at me because I keep saying jump in. And I'm going to have a little look at my current enrollment within the Cert 4 in commercial cookery. So what I can see here, if I just collapse all of my modules, is exactly where I'm at within the course. So this is, again, the first thing that a learner will see when they open up any of their qualifications. Could also be a short course. I'll show you a little example of something like a first aid course using learning plans as well. But if I open up the module that I'm currently undertaking, you can see here some of that content that I was talking about. So a really nice way to include maybe some written text. Could be a video that we want learners going through and watching through Vimeo or YouTube or some other sort of video hosting source. And then if I keep scrolling, I can see the learning and the assessment really nicely laid out for me, and even some custom headings that I've included in this particular learning plan as well. So as I spoke about, it's just giving the learners that progress as they're working through the learning and the assessment. But you can see here, I've still got an assessment that is fully locked down because I haven't satisfactorily completed that assessment yet. So that's that prerequisite rules coming into play. Down a little bit further, I also have some nice helpful resources that I still might want to include for learners to download. So it's just giving you the ability to really tailor the view and how learners will actually consume all of their learning. I'm going to really quickly take you through an example, just because I feel like this is very low-hanging fruit for any of our first aid providers, any of our short course providers. Learning plans is definitely not specifically for full quals. It works very well for full qualifications, but I actually think it's a really nice way to lay out a short course as well. So if you're delivering anything that really has that sort of pre-theory assessment before coming in to do a practical or whatever that might be, I feel that this is also a really valuable way to lay that out and make it look, really nice for a learner. So this is just a little example of that. So I won't go into too much nitty gritty. We have, I think it was Sam and Julian actually did a full learning plans webinar. So again, any sort of things that I'm mentioning, we are going to send you as part of the recording from today. So we'll try and hit you with as much content as we can so that you can start utilizing all of these features. Okay. So the very next thing that we have, this is a quick one, but something that's quite important. So if you are utilizing SCORM, and when we talk about SCORM, we're talking about e-learning content, the delivery of learning content. If you are utilizing SCORM at the moment, it's just a really good thing to be aware of, which is a new way that we can launch SCORM within aXcelerate or within the Learner portal. So I'm really quickly going to go into another Learner portal. Conscious about not saying jump in because I say it all the time. And I'm going to go into this particular course that I'm currently enrolled into. This is a short course that I've laid out within here. And if I scroll down, I have a little bit of SCORM here, a fire safety training program. So this is some SCORM content that I was provided and I've uploaded as part of this example. If I click on that SCORM e-learning, we are taken to the same sort of overview page, which you might be familiar with at the moment. This is sort of how it functions right now. But otherwise, if I click Launch Learning, you can see this is where things change. So normally we would either, depending on your launch settings, we would either be launching in a new window, which can cause all sorts of issues with pop-up blocker, or a new tab. But I guess this just simplifies everything and enables our learners to be consuming and looking at this e-learning without new tabs and new windows. So the only really critical thing to keep in mind with all of that and how to kind of get that set up is just one setting within your system settings, which is learner and app. System settings under learner and app settings. And then what you want to ensure is just that the actual e-learning or the SCORM package that you've uploaded into aXcelerate, the launch settings are actually frame set as opposed to, say, new window or any of the other options. So have a go with that. If you are utilizing SCORM at the moment, it is a little bit of a game changer and just something that I feel would really help that user experience without, things opening and being a little bit irritating. So definitely something to implement as well. Launch as learner. This is definitely another one of these areas that is heavily requested by many clients, or has been over the years. I think a few clients have definitely been jealous of our impersonate ability through support and through our onboarding teams. So basically what this feature enables us to do as admin users with the right permission is be able to actually go to a particular contact in aXcelerate, preferably a learner. Let's see if I can actually pull up. Maybe it's Jacobson. Here we go. So I'll jump into a particular learner and you'll find the Launch as Learner under our Actions menu against any of your contacts where we can see here Launch as Learner. So what that's going to enable us to do is jump straight into the Learner portal as that student. So it's a much easier way than trying to kind of navigate over the phone with a learner, trying to work out where they are or where they might be having issues with what they're seeing. So that's another really key feature if you're not aware of that you have the option to utilize as well. Okay. The next one I just talked about in a little bit more detail when I was running through what I'm going to present today is attendance signatures. So this is a really key one, whether you're currently marking attendance through aXcelerate or a paper-based format. This is definitely a bit of a game changer as well in terms of just compliance and capturing all of that digitally and trying to remove as much paper as possible. So I'm going to take you through just a little example through my learner portal. Actually, I'm going to just demonstrate this. Let's go in here. So really, these signatures to do with attendance tie back to ensuring we've got at least one complex date. So it could be a short course like first aid. It could also be a qualification where we've got some timetabling laid out over the course of a year. But it could also be something like a virtual classroom. So whether it's face-to-face or whether it's something like a virtual classroom, you can be utilizing this feature. I'm going to open up my calendar and I'm going to go and find an event where I can actually sign in. So I've got a barista coffee making course that happened last week. And at this point, if I go into my session details, we can see here my complex date needs my signature. So if I click on that, I can then go and add a nice little signature in here, click register, and that is then going to go and record that signature and my attendance against the attendance within the actual workshop itself as well. That is also available through our app as well. If you are kind of utilizing our new Learner Portal app, Sam has just reminded me that it is also available through our app too. One of the other key things, apart from just your student signatures, is also capturing your trainer's endorsement as well. And so, as I said, trainers at the moment can go into the workshop within aXcelerate, have a look at who's actually recorded signatures in terms of learners, and also then record their own signatures as well. So that's something that will be quite auditable in terms of the date and time and the trainer who's been logged in, who's actually signed that. Attendance. Okay, moving on before Tom steps up to the plate. Just a couple of quick additional enhancements. I mentioned these before, but multiple trainers accessing classes. So this, there's various ways in aXcelerate at the moment where we can have kind of multiple trainers against assessments or multiple trainers against short courses. But one of the really key things that we haven't had until now is the ability to go and set multiple trainers against one class. And I guess the key thing or the key reason that we've built this into the product, and I think some of our clients, it's this sort of use case, you might have multiple trainers looking after the same group of students. So when they log into their portal, they don't have full visibility over that class, but now they can. So the way in which we can implement that is just via the class update page. And if I scroll down, I not only have the ability to set my default trainer, which is pretty normal and something that you would always see, but I now have my additional trainer or assessor. So it's the ability to go and set, and it is a multi-select. I could put in Rufus Hagrid and I could also put in Tinkerbell as well. So yeah, visibility wise, that is definitely going to assist many of our trainers out there who are also looking after groups of students. The next one on my list is just to talk about that invoice due date offset. So where you find that is against our organisations area. So this specifically relates to being able to set a default, due date or offset, as we call it, for invoicing for a particular business. So if I go into dynamic training, one of my organisations in the system, and again, I go into the update and I scroll down, I have this new field, which is our invoice due date offset. So I could pop in here that my invoice due date offset is 7 days, it might be 30 days, it might be 15 or 14 days. So it's just giving you that flexibility down to your specific customers or clients. Whenever you go and set up a new invoice, say for dynamic training, that due date will always offset to 7 days as the due date. So that's that one. And last but not least, academic transcript updates. Yeah, the guys have been doing quite a lot of work on this, just trying to make that layout a little bit nicer, and that is both for admins to view, but also for students to view through their portal as well. But to give you an idea, getting lost in my tabs here, to give you a bit of an idea, I'm going to jump into my learner portal again. And where your learners will be able to see the academic transcript, which is quite new for them as well, for learners to see, is either through this menu, or if I jump into, say, if I'm looking at my profile, visible through there as well. So I will click on academic transcript, and I'm probably enrolled in many, many things right now, but we basically have this really nice list of, all of the courses that I've done in the history of being a student with you as an RTO. So there is a nice print option as well. So if learners do need to present that they've done X, Y, and Z to their employer, or just want a nice little list of everything they've achieved, they are able to really nicely do that as well. So that's it. You're going to hear from me a little bit later, but I am going to pass to Tom now, and he's going to take you through even more tips and tricks within the system. So welcome, Tom, and ready for another smooth transition.
Hello. Some of you in the audience may have seen my face before. My name is Tom. I'm one of our account managers here at aXcelerate. So I've been with the team for close to 2 years now. I started off working with our support team, a little bit of data migration, and I'm now working in our client engagement account management team. So there's a lot of people in the call today whose name I recognize, and specifically I want to shout out my fellow Toms from START Training and Kiama Community College. You guys know who I'm talking about. And guys, essentially what I'm going to do today is run you through some tips and tricks that I picked up on while working with clients. So one of the services that my role offers is called an aXcelerate Health Check. And typically people will come to us wanting to learn a bit more about the system, and in particular, areas they can tackle that may be recurring pain points. So I want to pass on some of that knowledge that I've obtained to you guys today. Now, in particular, the areas that we're going to look at are how we can review certain aspects of compliance in aXcelerate, as well as automating some of those too. I'm also going to show you how we can easily set up our trainer competencies, as well as that competency evidence management, which is quite simple to do, even though it is historically quite a difficult thing to maintain in spreadsheets. I also want to touch on some content authoring tips, specifically relating to online assessments within aXcelerate. We're going to finish off by looking at some reporting in aXcelerate, and in particular, some exportable views that can be very helpful in particularly business-to-business situations. And we're going to polish it all off by looking at some helpful tips, various things that I still want to pass on to you guys that haven't fit into the above topics. So let's start with our compliance. Now, what we're going to be looking at here, and I'm going to actually Alt-Tab and start demoing this for you, but we're going to be looking at reviewing our assessment mapping in aXcelerate. We're going to look at how we can automate certain factors of learning plans, which will tie into our compliance. And I'm going to show you how we can set up 2 workflows. One is the ability to send an EVETMIS report to a particular staff member. So throughout your year, you can be quelling your EVETMIS errors as they arise. And I'm also going to show you how you can automate your LEES surveys, which of course I'm sure is a pain point for everybody, but we can make it a lot easier for you. So taking a page from Katie's book, I'm going to close the presentation and jump into our account here. Now, what we're looking at here is called the Assessment Mapping Review screen. To navigate to this, you hover over Assessments and you can click on any of these tabs here. Now, assessment mapping, as I'm sure everyone's aware, I'll just very quickly touch on it. You will have an assessment and you need to tell your compliance, you need to tell aXcelerate what that assessment links to, which qualification, which unit, which elements of that unit. Now, it's Monday morning, it's 9 a.m, you've come into the office, you're in a really good mood, and you hear a knock on the door, and it's ASQA, and they're here to audit you. So what you want to do is go to your review tab, and very, very quickly, you can export your mapping. And I'm going to do this for a full qualification. Now, it's going to give us a warning to say this can take some time to generate. And the reason for that is, again, we're taking every single question from your linked assessments, and it's mapping where you have linked those particular questions in regards to performance criteria, evidence for units of competency. So here it has generated our certificate 3 in captive animals. And here we can see all of the units of competency that make up this qualification. Now, if we scroll down, one by one, it's going to walk us through each of these competencies and anything that has been mapped to them. So scrolling down here, I'm trying to find the example. Here we go. This is the one I'm looking for. So we can see that we have 5 assessments that are linked to our certificate 3 in captive animals. And down here, we can see that you have linked particular questions through to particular knowledge criteria for that corresponding unit. Now, in addition to doing this for your overall qualification, you can also export on a per unit basis, and you simply go through and click next unit, so on, so forth. Now, when you actually want to export this, you simply click print at the top, and you can save it as a PDF, you can print it out to your printer, so on, so forth. So that's an effective way to review your mapping in aXcelerate, and I'm certain that our aXcelerate Turbo clients will find great benefit in this feature. Now, the next thing I want to quickly touch on are learning plan automations. So earlier, Katie was walking us through how learning plans look from the student perspective. But something that I want to highlight to you guys is that you can actually instruct a learning plan to update a student's start and end date for a particular unit of competency. So as an example, let's look down here at part 2 of our learning plan, and we can see that we have some assessments and some lessons linked through to particular units of competency. Now, if we come up to the top and we edit the settings for part 2, we can come down here and tick these: automatically commence related unit and automatically complete related unit. So that will look at the unit that's linked to the assessments within part 2 in this case, and will mark them as commenced or completed as soon as the student commences or completes their assessment. So an example of where this is really, really useful is we have a few clients that will deliver online training and it's self-paced for that student. All they do is they give the student access to their learning plan and let them work through the content at their own pace. And the start and end dates for the corresponding unit of competency will be updating in real time to show when the student initially commenced and completed those corresponding units. Now, the final area of compliance I want to touch on is workflow. So I know that there's going to be a lot of us who are very familiar with workflow in the call. It's one of the key features to aXcelerate Turbo. But I want to show you in particular some AVETMIS and LEES examples. So let's call this our monthly AVETMIS report. Now, in the action, we type in AVETMIS and you'll see that we can tell the workflow engine to queue an AVETMIS validation report. Now, this is an aXcelerate validation report, not an Enceiver validation report, just to clarify. Now, let's say that we want every month a particular administrator to receive our last month's AVETMIS validation report to show us any errors that we need to work through and amend. We could show them the current year to date, or we could show them last month, which I want to do in this example. We could send it to them as an Excel document or as a PDF. And down the bottom here, I'm going to click Run Wizard. And this is then going to ask us, who are we going to be sending this AVETMIS report to? Now, I'm going to type in my name, and this is going to look for your system administrators. But you can click Search All Contacts on the right if they don't exist as a user in the system. Now down here, it's showing us the message that's going to be sent to the contact and including a link to download that AVETMIS validation report. And we're going to update this step. That has just created an advanced workflow and there's nothing else we need to touch with those steps. The final thing we need to do is set a schedule. So I'm going to come in and choose the first day of every month. But of course, you can create your own schedules with this button here on the right. Now I'm going to save that, and on the first day of every month, I'm going to get emailed a breakdown of last month's VETMIS errors in the system. Now, while we're in here, let's have a look at automating our LEES survey. So let's call this LEES survey sending. And for the action, we're just going to type in LE/ES, and you'll see that there's an option in here to send that survey. Now, this is a much more simple workflow to set up. All we're doing is saying we want to send our students our LEES survey. If we had a particular template, we could select one if we wanted to. In fact, I might even use our survey one as an example. You could update the name of your subject as well. So I might just call this post-training survey. And down the bottom here, we choose when that's going to be sent to our students. So being an LE survey, we want to send it after the student has finished studying. So I might say one day after their award has been issued, they are going to receive this email with the survey to complete. All we need to do now is click save, and for all of our accredited training, this is going to be sending. Now, because this is our demo account, I'm actually going to pause this because I don't want it to be sending to all of our examples. Okay, that's the compliance side of what I wanted to show you here. So let's jump in and have a look at trainer competency and evidence management. So this is a very fundamental part of aXcelerate, available to both our standard and turbo clients, and is very important not only to make sure you have the proper trainers delivering the proper training, but also you need to be able to show this in event of an audit. So I'm going to show you how we can facilitate this within aXcelerate. So let's jump back into the system, and we're going to go into our contacts tab and into our trainers. Now I'm going to use myself as an example here, but of course this will work for any of the trainers you have in the system. Now what we want to do is click on this competency matrix button, and you'll see it's a very blank page. We haven't set up any competencies for our trainer. Now what we want to do is say that Tom can train and deliver a Certificate 3 in business. So under our Add Course tab, I've searched for our course, and this is of course searching for courses, qualifications that exist in your aXcelerate account. And down here, we can see all the units of competency that make up that qual. What I want to do is I'm going to select all of them, come up here to my competency level, and tell the system that I can train and assess all of those units. Now, what's going to happen here? I'm going to submit, and you're going to see a few different options are going to appear down the bottom. Because I've given myself competency in those units, the system will look for any other qualification that contains those units, and will also say that you can train and assess, just like you did in this earlier qualification. Now, what if I can't train and assess? What if I can only train or only assess? In fact, let's have a look at that and use these 3 units of competency as an example. Coming up to the top here, I can't train and assess, I can train only. So we're simply going to proceed with that bulk change, and you'll see that that again has changed in the other qualifications that utilize the same units of competency. So for simplicity today, guys, I'm going to say that I can train and assess everything in this qualification, and we're going to move on to the next. So TAE evidence. Essentially, what this is a portfolio for the contact in aXcelerate. For those who aren't aware, portfolios are essentially a document upload for an individual contact. We won't be looking at that in too much detail today, but I do want to make it clear that you can use portfolios and tie that in to your trainer evidence. You can also categorize your TAE categories, for lack of a better word, by clicking this button at the top here, which will in another window allow you to add additional options. Now let's actually have a look at uploading this evidence. So we're going to click on Unit of Competency Evidence here. Now this is going to show us all of our units of competency that we've already said I can train and assess. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload evidence to prove that. So for these 3 units here, I'm going to click Upload Evidence. Now you'll see here we have 2 options. If we selected an existing portfolio item, we could link a document that has already been uploaded to our trainer's portfolio. However, as we can see, that doesn't exist in this case. So we're going to make a new one. Now for our portfolio type, I'm going to say that this is let's just go with academic history. And it's going to give us some various information that we can fill out, but don't have to. They're not mandatory fields. Now I'm going to upload our evidence, trainer evidence, here we go, and let's submit that. Now what we can see is this trainer now has a little 1 next to those units of competency. And if we click on that, we can actually see the specific piece of evidence that has been uploaded. Academic history, the date, and the relevant units. Now you'll see it says it requires review. An administrator with the relevant permissions will have to come in here, click on this icon, and you can essentially approve this piece of evidence. So you can go approve, looks good, submit that, and that is now valid evidence stored against that trainer's specific unit competency. Later on in this session, we're going to look at how we can use a report to pull this information, but this is crucial. It's very, very effective at proving what your what your trainers can deliver in a very time-effective manner. Now that's the trainer part done, and we're going to move on and have a look at some of our content authoring. So one of the areas that I want to start off by talking about today are assessment types. We're going to have a look at how we can also further customize the multi-short answer question type that Katie was showing earlier. And I also want to polish off this section by showing you some tricks for embedding content into your online assessments or learning plans. So let's jump back into aXcelerate, and I'm going to go into our assessment types. Now there's going to be quite a few options in this account, but I'm going to click Add New Assessment Type, and I'll give you guys a little breakdown. So in aXcelerate, there are 5 base types of assessments, and we can see them here on the screen. Observation checklist, marking criteria, RPL evidence, online quiz, and lesson. Online quiz is the example I'm going to use today. Now that I've selected online quiz, you can see there's a bunch of options at the bottom relating to this particular assessment type. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this online quiz signature required. Now let's have a read through these options and have a look at what we can achieve. So there's obviously lots of little yes or no ticks. We're not going to spend all of this time looking into every single option, but I will highlight a few as an example. So you could say that the student has build on attempts. So if the student gets their first attempt incorrect and they go in to attempt it again, they only have to reattempt those initially incorrect questions. You could also give students multiple attempts per item. If it's a self-marking question, you might want to let the student have an opportunity to get it right again if they immediately get it wrong. But down here, these are the 2 buttons I want to show you guys today. Assessor signature required, learner declaration required. Now what this is going to do, when we author an assessment and tell aXcelerate it's an online quiz, signature required, when a student submits their assessment, they will have to electronically sign on the screen, much like we saw in Katie's example earlier, where she was signing as a student. And same with our assessor signature. When the trainer or assessor actually finalizes this mark, they also have to digitally sign to verify it was them that resulted it. You can also include a declaration for the learner, but we do have a little default spiel in there, so you can leave this blank. Now I'm going to submit that, and if we now search for online quiz, you will see online quiz signature required is one of our many assessment types we have set up. So if you're looking for very particular types of customization for your assessments, this is a fantastic place to have an initial look. Now, from assessment types, let's actually jump into an assessment. And what I quickly want to show you guys is just a little refresher as to what Katie showed you earlier. If we come down to the bottom here, this is called, again, a multi-short answer question. We're asking the student a question and we're giving them multiple areas to respond in. Now, what you'll notice in this example here is we have incorporated response fields into a formatted table. And this is actually a lot easier to do than it may initially seem. So let's actually jump out of the preview screen and look at what this looks like from the authoring side. So we're going to come down here into multi-short answer. Here's our table. Here are our response fields. Tell you what, let's just come in, add a new table. Let's make it 2. And in the bottom right one here, I want to include a response area. And we might say, look, I tell you what, I'm just sensitive for time. I'm not going to pop in too many examples in there. But essentially, you can format responses into tables and you can really make them look pretty schmick. And you can even come in, like Katie said, you can customize the length that students have to reply. So if there's a small area, you could very much so limit the amount of words they have to respond with. And while we're in here, I also want to show you guys that you can actually embed content into your online assessments as well as learning plans. So this right here is a Google slide that I authored externally to aXcelerate and is stored in my Google Drive. If I click on this icon at the top here and I come down to embed, and I'm hoping this is going to work, it remembered it, nice. This is an embed code provided to me by my Google Drive. I'm going to quickly click save and you'll see it has popped it in there. So I've already got it in here, so let's come up and have a look. So we've got slides that the students can actually click through. Then we've got a question. Is EVETMIS reporting important for an RTO? And the answer is yes. Just like we've seen here, in learning plans, you can also embed this content the exact same way. Now, I'm going to quickly talk to reporting and views here. I won't spend too much time on this given that we are approaching 12. So I want to show you guys your class matrix is actually an exportable view. So let's come into one of our classes. I'm going to leave this page. And I'm going to look for our particular webinar class that I use as an example. Now in here, we have a cohort of students. And let's pretend this is a business that's approached us and these are their employees that we are training. That business might say to us, we want a breakdown of where our students are up to. What we could do is come up the top, export this as a PDF. And this is literally going to give us a breakdown of this screen right here. The students, the units, and the corresponding status. In addition to that, you can also change your views. So you could make this a learning plan view and then export that. And what that's going to do is show a full breakdown where each student is up to in their individual journey. And if we click on the report here, we can see what that looks like also. Now, the report builder. Let's have a look at this because earlier on we were looking at trainer competencies. And if we type in trainer, we can actually see there is a report for trainer competencies and for trainer evidence. I'm not going to spend too much time actually walking you through these today because it is standard reporting process from here, but you can export the work you've done in your trainer competency area in case of an audit. And while we're here, I very quickly want to touch on the difference between a live and a warehoused report. A warehoused report is essentially stored in a separate cached database that is refreshed overnight every day. So when you run a warehoused report, it's pulling the information from a separate part of aXcelerate and is loading it a lot faster. Whereas a live report will be pulling information as of right now from your aXcelerate account, and that could sometimes take a bit of time to process. So I want to mention that while we're here, that when you're doing reporting, unless it needs to be specific up until that very second, we recommend using warehoused reports. Now let's jump back into our presentation. And the last thing that I'm going to be walking you guys through today are some quick, helpful tips. Now, again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we are approaching 12, but very quickly, let's have a look at what I mean by custom fields. So in aXcelerate, you can create areas for you to enter a response against a student's enrollment, against their contact profile. So an example is, let's say that we are an RTO that has a membership program, and students can sign up and we give them a membership card and a membership ID. We might call this member ID, and the variable name, we'll just call it member ID as well. Now the field type, you've got a couple of options here. I'm going to say this is a number and that it links to the contact profile. What this means now, let's actually submit this and I'll even show you. If I go into, tell you what, I'll actually search for mine because I know that'll be a cleaner example. If we go update and we scroll down, we can now see there's a section in here for custom fields, and we can even see member ID. My ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and update. This is particularly useful for clients that utilize APIs because you can, of course, create fields that don't exist if you do need them. Now, training categories. If we hover over our cog here and we click on training categories, this is a way for you to link particular qualifications into one overarching category. As an example, you can see here that we have a business section. And if I open this, tell you what, it's not as nice as I thought it was going to be. Let's actually make one together right now. We're going to call this business qualifications. Now, what we need to do here is tell aXcelerate which qualifications, or courses in this case, we're going to be linking. So I'm going to include our Cert 1, our Cert 3, and our Cert 4 in business. Now, what I can do as well is change how this appears in the calendar. So if I make this green as an example, anytime one of these courses is booked in our aXcelerate account, in our calendar, it will appear with this color coding. So it's a very effective way of visually keeping relevant courses together. In addition to this, you can even use it on your online enrollments website. So you could say, as an example, click here to view our business qualifications, and then it would take them through to a page with these qualifications here. Now, the resource library in aXcelerate is a very powerful tool that I find gets underused quite a lot. This is essentially a file storage feature within aXcelerate. But the reason I want to raise this today is you can actually upload files to be accessible by your students. So if we upload a resource and we very quickly upload our student handbook here, I might call this just student handbook. I'm going to say this is accessible by our learners, and that means it's going to appear in their learner portal. And I'm going to say this resource is a training related resource. And that then tells me, do you want this to relate to a specific course, or is this a general purpose document that any student should be able to access? If I wanted it to relate to business as an example, I could select this top option, click submit, and then link it to the business example. But we want this to be a general purpose document that any student can download. So when we submit this, any of our enrolled students, if they go into the resources section of their learner portal, will be able to view and download that course handbook. Now, if we look at our student handbook, not our course handbook, we've noticed a typo and we need to get a new version out to our students. So we're going to edit this step, and you'll see it's now setting this to version 1.1. We do have the history of the older version down the bottom here, but what I want to do is click this button, force latest version. This will mean that even if a student somehow has a link to this old version of the handbook, when they visit that, it's instead going to direct them to the newer version 1.1. And let's save that. The last thing that I'm going to be talking about in this section of the presentation is your Learner Portal customization. So for those who don't know, you can go into your system settings and you'll have an option here called Learner Portal and App Settings. Now, I'm actually going to be hosting a webinar going into a lot more detail about the customization you can make or set up in your Learner Portal. And that's going to be coming later on this July. I'll be talking about that later on in the presentation. So I won't talk to many of these options here today, but I do want you guys to be aware that look at how many options there are. You can really change a whole lot of things on your Learner Portal. In particular, you know, an example, the first thing the student sees when they boot up the particular course. Do you want them to see the learning plan straight away? Do you want them to see their units straight away? The qualification details, so on and so forth. So guys, that's essentially my tips and tricks. Let's come back in here. That's essentially my tips and tricks that I wanted to run you guys by, all sorted. So we're going to move on to our question and answers section today. So Katie's going to be joining me for this one, but let's have a look at some general sentiment that we've found. So firstly, guys, we received over 90 questions in response to this ideas forum, in response to this client forum. Thank you, Katie. So thank you guys, because that obviously shows that you guys are very passionate and you want to learn more. And that has really helped us shape this entire presentation. A lot of the questions that were asked have been answered earlier on while showing system improvements, overview, so on and so forth. You guys obviously want to know what's new and what's coming up, and hopefully we've done a good job of being as transparent as we can and giving you guys the information that you're eager to hear. You guys obviously want to learn how to do more in the system. And a way that we've immediately helped you guys with that is we've created our new learning series on YouTube. If you haven't seen that before, you can visit the aXcelerate YouTube channel and it will include all of our learning series in there, as well as any webinars that are being scheduled or completed. Now, in addition to that, we're going to be hosting a lot of webinars closely with our support team, and they're going to be coming up starting in July. So keep an eye on those and we'll tell you how you can tune into them later on. And finally, you guys have some really good ideas. We had some fantastic suggestions forwarded to us while setting up this forum today. And look, a lot of those have already been put forward onto our product management committee for review. Now, these are some specific questions that we received from clients when signing up to this forum that haven't particularly been answered just yet.
I might move in next to you, Tom.
Yeah, come on in. So first and foremost, one of the questions we got is training.gov.au scripted in aXcelerate to capture package changes? The short answer is no. We want you to re-import any changes that are being made, and the reason for that is we don't want to be automatically updating your courses while you may have students enrolled. So the short answer to that one is no.
You can, however, set up workflows based on reports that are running off a review date that you've set against the qualification. So that is a really nice way to just at least keep up to date and make sure that, say, every 3 months, your compliance manager is getting notifications to just check the qualification. And that's just a really nice click of a button. It'll touch, or not touch, but it'll talk to training.gov at that point, and it'll let you know if any units have been superseded, any changes to the qualifications have happened. So just a nice sort of alternative to pushing all those changes live into aXcelerate, as Tom said.
Well said, well said. So the next thing that we got asked, and we actually got asked this a fair bit, is electronic signatures coming to templates in aXcelerate anytime soon? So the answer is it's coming, but it may not necessarily be soon. We hear the demand for it and how fundamentally important it would be for the transition to online learning, and we would love to make this a reality. So we hear you, it's something we're working on, but we don't have an estimated release at this stage. Of course, it is a very sought after feature, so we will be sending out correspondence much closer when we have further information to share.
That's right. And that's to tackle things like training plans, any sort of forms that you want your learners digitally signing, and hopefully will work similar to something like DocuSign. So that's to come.
That's it. So the next question is, can you add a reporting field to include multiple trainers attending a course or a class? The answer is yes, we can. And if you check after tonight's release, you're going to be able to do that. So try again tomorrow morning and the answer will be yes.
Brand new update.
That's it. Now, student attendance signatures for the aXcelerate app, just as Katie was showing earlier, that's something that is absolutely going to be facilitated. And finally, we received a lot of questions about, does aXcelerate integrate with a specific platform? Now, I wanted to raise this because we, of course, on our website have our integrations page. And if there isn't a particular integration listed on there, it means we don't currently have one built for that platform. However, we do have very robust APIs and API documentation available to aXcelerate Turbo clients. And what that allows you and your web developer IT team to do is create your own integrations with software of your choice. So if there's a particular integration you're really hoping we're going to create, and we haven't spoken about it today, going down the route of APIs could be a fantastic next step.
I think it's also important to add that I think for us, integrations obviously are something that we already feel very strongly about in terms of, you know, ensuring that we preach the one system, but enabling really nice integration obviously strengthens that as well, where we can't be everything to everyone or do everything. So I think for us, yeah, integrations is definitely something that you'll hear us speak about a little bit more, but Tom's right, we do have a really robust REST API that you can be utilizing right now to create a really nice custom integration with any other platform as well.
Perfect.
So,
and I'll quickly note as well, you can get the APIs on aXcelerate standard, but there is a separate cost associated with that. So if you're on aXcelerate Turbo and you want to learn more about that, you can reach out to our team and we can provide that documentation. If you're on aXcelerate standard and you're interested, please get in touch and we can discuss pricing options for you.
We've had a couple of other questions. I think we've had a lot of questions actually throughout the webinar, which we haven't been privy to because we've been presenting. But we do have a couple that our team have pulled out for us to just chat about quickly with you now. The first one is around, is it possible to embed PowerPoints into assessments? So Tom has actually answered this in the last segment, which is a big yes, which is great. I think it's just important to note that anything that has an embed code, you can go pretty crazy and embed all sorts of different content into learning plans, lessons, and assessments. So it could be a PowerPoint, it could also be a PDF. We've had clients that have published a PDF and just enable a learner to scroll through as opposed to copy and pasting all the content into aXcelerate. Could be a nice graph from Excel. There's so many options. So that is something else to note. Could even be something a little bit out of the box, well, not out of the box, but could be something more like a simulated environment. So I've seen some really cool things that clients have done with embed codes as well. The next one is all around the competency matrix and whether that is only in Turbo and just generally are all the features we're talking about in Turbo only today. We have covered off a huge amount of different things. Most of our, or really all of our key compliance features, like the trainer matrix, our resource library that Tom covered off, things like our quality, our survey areas, all of those are in our standard and our Turbo packages as well. So you can definitely go crazy and utilize all of those to, you know, the best that you can. And yes, available in standard and Turbo. There's definitely some Turbo features that we've covered off today, all of the features surrounding our online assessments, learning plans, and then some of the other workflow integrate or workflow automation that Tom mentioned as well. But yeah, it is really important to have a little look at what is part of your plan, because even on standard, there's a lot there, but yeah, there's ultimately all of our feature set within our Turbo platform. Otherwise, I think that that's all the questions the team have kind of provided us to answer outside of what they've been getting back to you on. So we might just go to the next slide. And Tom, I might let you just chat about this webinar reminder for everyone.
So these are essentially the webinars I was touching on that our support team are going to be hosting, again, starting this July. So you can see on the screen the topics that we're going to be talking about. The first of which is going to be customizing your learner portal. I will be presenting that with Luke from our support team. And if you wanted to sign up to that, the URL is on the screen at the moment, or alternatively, you can visit our aXcelerate website and click on the webinar section and sign up that way. And of course, if you can't view them live, they will be uploaded to our YouTube channel in the days following the recording.
Absolutely. And then just ensure that you are, or to keep up to date with everything, if you could follow us on socials, we would really, really appreciate it. But also you get to hear all the latest and greatest news from us as well. We do have a LinkedIn, we do have a Facebook, we do have a YouTube channel. We already have a number of subscribers, hundreds of subscribers on our YouTube accounts. But yeah, if you're not already subscribed, that is going to be the quickest way for you to see when we have new features, when we release a new sort of help video. So really critical that, yeah, you're keeping posted on our YouTube videos, because we've gone a bit crazy in there, and there's many, many resources to watch and also provide your team if they're new to the system. Also to mention Heartbeat, we've changed the format a little bit. Our marketing team's been doing some really cool things there. So you'll start seeing the sort of new articles come through from Heartbeat. But otherwise, yeah, please follow us and yeah, hear news first on our socials. But otherwise, I think that might be it today. This was, I think, our little thank you slide without the thank you.
I dare say, yeah, it's a fancy animation.
There's a little bit of animation I wasn't ready for. But yeah, a massive thank you to our presenters today, but more than anything, thank you to all of you who have attended today. I know it's quite a big session, so hopefully you've been able to kind of get in there and ask some questions and get some responses. And also, yeah, there's some things that you can take away and either start implementing now or start having a think about in terms of your own roadmaps and what you're doing within your own businesses, whether there's some cool things that align to what you want to be doing in the future as well. So thank you so much. Have an amazing rest of your day and stay tuned. We've got all those other webinars coming up. Stay tuned for the next client forum. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.